and welcome to the Daily Space Weather, folks. I am your host, Dan, aka smAsho, and we're going to start things out today looking at the sun in 94 angstroms. And, whoops, what's going on with that? The moon making an eclipse run in between the SDO and the sun there. I'll let that play through a second time there. You see the moon taking a peek. And we see some magnetic anomalies also as a result of the sun getting, of the moon getting in between the SDO and the sun. So here's a colorized magnetogram. Now this is a custom movie. This is just today. And going to see some blurring in the magnetogram, and that's largely because of the moon getting in the way. So there's the colorized magnetogram. That's about 8 hours of activity there. And here you can see on HelioViewer this anomaly down here in the southeast corner, or perhaps the sun is evolving into a baseball. Perhaps these are the initial baseball threads forming on the sun. Let's look at a HelioViewer movie real quick. And I noticed some filaments, so I decided to take this 304 angstrom view, complete with the Earth scale, and there you can see the moon taking a peek. That's a good one. Let me allow that to play for a moment while I say, have you checked out smashomash.com/forum yet? There's lots of information there, and constantly updating things like virus, COVID-19. And yeah, so smashomash.com/forum. If you haven't checked it out yet, please do so. And let's get on with the daily space weather. KP index is currently at 2. And we see quite weak solar activity. And let's take a moment to look at cosmic rays. First, the Opacity Neutron Monitor. And you can see it's got an uptick over the past 30 days. Barentsburg, tiny uptick there, nearly flat over the past 30. And next we'll look at Athens Neutron Monitor. And there you see Athens 30 days, looking quite flat there in Greece. Next we've got Mexico City. And it's a small uptick there. Nearly a 1% uptick over the past 30 days there at Mexico City. And next, Moscow, showing a 1% uptick there also at Moscow over the past 30. Interesting data. And lastly, we'll look at Oulu, Finland, and DOMB Antarctica, not sending data. But there's Oulu, and we covered a very large spike on the 1-day scale here at Oulu a few days ago. If you didn't see it, perhaps check our more recent videos. Anyway, there's Oulu, and a small uptick there at Oulu, about 0.5% over the past 30. Something like that, maybe up to a full percent. DOMB Antarctica, looking flat. And we always leave links to this network of cosmic ray stations link in the descriptions below our videos, so you can monitor cosmic rays yourself. If you see anything weird, drop me a line. It's smashomash@gmail.com. Next, the 10.7 centimeter radio flux has dropped down to 70. So basically back to solar minimum conditions. We see a little bit of activity on the far side of the sun. And yeah, weak solar activity. If you want to read more about the 10.7 centimeter radio flux, head to spaceweather.com. There's a link to it there. 10.7 centimeter radio flux was discovered by some Canadians in 1947 who were playing around with some World War II era radio equipment, and they discovered that the 10.7 centimeter radio flux is nearly a perfect proxy for solar activity, correlating almost 100% with sunspot number. X-ray flux is still quite flatlined there, no B-class flares or anything like that, no surprise, as we see 0 sunspots. Next we'll look at the solar wind data. Nothing exciting to report on in the top 2 panes. Solar wind density very low, 1.4 protons per cubic centimeter. Solar wind speed ramping down following this coronal hole wind stream, now down to right around 400 kilometers a second. There's the data from ACE. We are making a second video today, by the way, folks. It's going to be a BitChute exclusive, and we'll explain why momentarily. First, we're going to look at the geospace magnetosphere movies, and there's 4 hours of data. And it's looking fairly equalized out there. It's a fairly steady ramp down of the solar wind. And no real activity forecasted. This thing is going to weaken over the next couple of days, probably. And next, we'll look at the geospace ground magnetic perturbations. And we see pulses coming out of the Pacific Ocean there, south of Baja, California. You can see those little anomalous pulses right there. As the North Pole continues to creep to the southwest. That's the Canadian one. The Siberian one looks like it's staying steady. And the South Geomagnetic Pole is creeping up here like this toward southwestern Australia. If you think it's weird, well, geomagnetic excursions are weird, and you're currently living through one. Do you follow us on Twitch? We occasionally will put live videos up there and then later host them at different sites. For instance, this particular video will be at YouTube and BitChute. But we prefer Twitch as a live streaming platform as YouTube's junkware frankly sucks, and I hate to use it. Please consider supporting the channel on Patreon, the current source of funding, as YouTube tries its best to pay us nothing by demonetizing our videos. So check out paypal.me/smAsho also if you're not a fan of Patreon due to its problems with free speech. And we've just started up a Subscribe Star page, so perhaps check that out also. This is going to be the intermediate level. So the gold level on Patreon is $9.99 a month. There's also an intro level at $1 a month, which gets limited benefits. The only level on Subscribe Star is $3 a month USD. So perhaps check that out. A platform that supports free speech instead of shutting it down because of politics and other nonsense. Why am I talking about it? Well, because yesterday's space weather video got demonetized. Why? Nobody knows. It's a mystery. So we've appealed it, and now somebody will review it, I guess by flipping a coin or perhaps by playing war, a la the DNC in Nevada. Please follow us on BitChute, as we've got exclusive content there. And there's a reason for it, and it's largely because of nonsense like this. Also, we're getting hundreds of more views per video on BitChute than we are on YouTube. So cheers to all of those folks on Minds and all those other places. Alt tech starting to push big tech into the ground. There's the auroral forecasts as we get back to data here. GOES magnetometer continuing to look spiky, as I've been forecasting for a solid week. And here's the basis for the forecast. It's the Gong 2 data. You gotta love it. It's a top view ecliptic plane field plot. And we're gonna look at the line of sight field plot 2 on a daily, especially as solar activity rises, to help folks with their magnetohydrodynamics understanding. And we're gonna see continued spikiness here. And there is a little bit of activity rising there. It's going to be north of the solar equator. And it's pretty weak activity, so don't expect to see any sunspots anytime soon. Next, we're going to look at the line of sight field plot here, showing the B field in blue, the north solar polar field in green, and the south solar polar field in red, which is completely in charge of the current sheet, shown here in red from a 90-degree perspective. And 90-degree perspectives are super important in space, folks. We're not going to get into it, although today's daily space weather video shall include some cosmology stuff, because our BitChute exclusive is not going to be a cosmology segment. Relativistic electrons are still at pretty high levels here. Actually, they've probably dropped back down. Keep in mind this data is a little bit old. And the GOES electron flux has cratered. So no expectation of whether that's going to go back into warning levels today, although I would say we're going to see slightly lower electron flux levels than yesterday. Here's the total electron content forecast. This gives you some idea of how much of a GPS error you'll get. For instance, places like northern South America, or if you're flying or sailing off the west coast of northern South America. You can see these red areas. You're going to get a GPS error of up to maybe 80 meters there, 100 meters. And we've demonstrated this various times when we get electron storms over the US by showing folks how badly our GPSs screw up. When you do a bike ride that has a 10,000 mile per hour average speed, it's probably some sort of a measuring error, wouldn't you say? And the F2 ionosphere layer here, or the F layer, if you look at the red blobs, as that's not an F2 layer, that's just an F layer. And if you're trying to send radio signals there, your radio signals are F'd and they're going into space instead of being re-emitted back down to the surface where you'd like them to go. Anyway, there's 6 hours of data looking pretty normal here on the ionosphere, and there is the latest image. Have you purchased a 5G protection baseball cap? Well, we talk about how ridiculous it is on Instagram, and other ridiculous things like voting for Bernie Sanders. How pathetic is that? Absolutely pathetic. And let's talk about, whoa, it's the ESA's solar orbiter, which I'm very excited about. This is just an animation of it deploying its boom, and there's an article today on Universe Today about how it's already starting to observe the sun, although there's no indication that there's any data coming back yet about this in particular. Oh, there we go, the first solar measurements. Let's click on that. And apparently that's a thing. The first measurements arrived on Thursday. That's Thursday, February 13th. And I haven't read this one yet, so I'm just going to let it scroll and skim it. There's the animation of the boom deployment that you saw all over the internet, including on our channel. Anyway, they switched on the magnetometer's 2 sensors. And basically we're just rehashing the same story here. This is just simply talking about how it's measured the magnetic field, the interplanetary magnetic field. So we'll be waiting with bated breath about the exciting ESA Solar Orbiter mission, which will study the solar poles and get the best views ever. Turns out Comet Borisov shows no sign of alien technosignatures. And there's some in-depth studies going on that you can participate in as a citizen scientist. So check out the Breakthrough Listen Initiative. It's breakthroughinitiatives.org, and you can actually download SETI data here and analyze it and become an extraterrestrial researcher yourself. So perhaps check that out. We'll link it below the video. Also, we've joined the AAVSO, the American Association of Variable Star Observers, as we are going to be talking about this regularly also. Since all stars are variable stars, this really makes them have their work cut out for them there at the AAVSO. Turns out Betelgeuse is brightening once again, so the likelihood that it will go supernova seems to be diminished. Let's talk about Star Wars. I can't stand Star Wars. And apparently Luke Skywalker is getting a yellow lightsaber sometime this year. We're so excited about the yellow lightsaber. Oh my gosh, so exciting. Seriously, folks, I can't stand Star Wars. I was a huge fan of it. And just keep in mind that the advertising for action figures started before I was able to remember my life, and they've never stopped. So if things that are played out irritate you, well, they do me too. And I can't stand it. I'm so sick of Star Wars. It's the amount of pop culture time wasted on this nonsense is just depressing. I don't care how good of a song it is. If you play it enough times, you're gonna hate it. And I officially hate Star Wars. Ugh. So I'm 43 years old, and the advertising for these putrid action figures started before I can remember and has never ended. Star Wars, the most played out franchise in human history. We're not going to be talking markets today. We're doing that on our BitChute exclusive. So if you want to hear about the economy, head over there. And also, again, I remind you to head to smashomash.com/forum, as we have an entire section, an entire thread, which is nearly 6 pages long, totally devoted to the virus, COVID-19. And the numbers are still extremely underreported, and there's some other bad news coming out because it's now starting to hurt world economies. Italy has towns that are shut down. South Korea has a huge jump in its cases. And again, very underreported. So also the possibility that the gestation period between when you're infected and when you experience symptoms could be as long as 27 days. That is also bad news. Let's just hope we don't see any significant problems getting any worse. So here's the current graph. As confirmed cases approach 80,000, and this could be as much as 800,000 actual cases. And in some places, it could be as high as hundreds of thousands based on that reporting. Total confirmed cases currently 79,360. Total deaths 2,619. I don't know what they mean by 691 others. But 157 cases in Italy, 147 in Japan, 763 in South Korea, and 35 in the U.S. Turkey saw another strong earthquake near the border region at Iran. This, from the watchers, at least 9 dead now, as they saw another earthquake near the site of that 5.7 we reported on yesterday, and that one was a 6.0. So bad news there, as there are a lot of buildings that can't withstand earthquakes. And let's go down the full list for the past 24. And we're just going to scroll up here and cover deep quakes and large quakes. There's a 4.5 at Papua New Guinea at 282 kilometers depth. I would be concerned about a larger quake at the surface north of Australia, as there's been a spout of deep quakes in that whole region. There's a deep one at Russia. That one's at 173 kilometers depth and a 5.2 magnitude. And we're just going to scroll up the list. There's that 6.0 at Turkey, that one coming in at 1600 Universal Time yesterday. I would assume it caused additional damage, as it's significantly more powerful than a 5.7, which struck the day before. There's an aftershock at Turkey, and we're just going to go up the list here. There's a deep quake in western South America, pretty far inland. That 4.6 magnitude tremor at 238 kilometers depth. If that happened at the surface, that would be a mid-level 5 magnitude quake. Now we've zoomed in on Suwanosejima, this little tiny volcanic island in the Ryukyu island chain, and we just wanted to cite that location, as we always put more and more favorites on our windy.com map. And we're just going to scroll all the way out here and look at the pressure zones, as we do most days. And I've tried to set this to universal time, but it hasn't worked. So we're just going to let this advance about 24 hours. And it's 4:24 where I'm located, which is in Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania. And let's move on to more stuff. And we've got a new volcano on the list here, Rupahu in North New Zealand, the northern island of New Zealand there, kind of right in the middle of the island. And some warnings about seismic activity there. So perhaps this thing is coming back to life. There are the seismic charts. And the lake temperature has risen again, so the possibility that this thing could suddenly explode is an unwelcome thing. Although I'm not sure how populated the area is. Please leave a comment if you know. Excuse me. Here's a volcano rundown. Mount Aso, producing a 6,000-foot plume. Popocatépetl, 12,000-foot plume. Suwanosejima, 5,000-foot plume there as it also explodes. Tokono, continuous emissions, producing a 7,000-foot plume of volcanic ash. While the volcanic earthquake episode has ended on Rupahu, still showing a heated up volcanic lake. So that's, for instance, if the lake starts to drain, that's an indication it's going to explode. Popocatépetl exploding, 20,000-foot plume there. Sangay exploding, 21,000-foot plume there. Revenador exploding, 14,000-foot plume there. And Sabancaya producing sporadic puff emissions. Please do not attempt to do a back handspring over the caldera at Sabancaya. Let's check out lightning on the real-time lightning maps. It's lightningmaps.org. That's lightningmaps.org. Next time you hear thunder, check it out. And we've got some lightning striking here near the Oklahoma-Kansas border. Anyway, lightningmaps.org. I turn it on when I hear thunder. Next, we'll do some value-added services. How about the U.S. Doppler radar map? Let's zoom out a little bit so you can see the date stamps. And there you can see that area where that thunder and lightning is being generated near the Oklahoma-Kansas border as snow continues to fall in the northern Rockies. Here are the eastern jet streams on nullschool.net. Floating smAsho head says that is extreme meridional jet stream flow, causing snow to fall in the Middle East and people to freak out and lose their you-know-what. Here are the eastern jet streams, western jet streams. And once again, big bends in the jet stream here. If you think that's caused by human carbon dioxide emissions, I suggest a team of psychiatrists. A team. You need a team. To quote Seinfeld, you don't need once a week for $80. No, you need a team. People having meetings, talking about you. Because if you think CO2 does that, take a physics class. Just one. Just one. All right. Here's a water vapor map over Europe and Africa. And if you know how to read the map, more power to you. Here's the water vapor map over the U.S. And this one's a little better. And we'll get better data for that Africa-Europe map one of these days. We'll get around to it. Don't worry, folks. And check out that long line of dry air pushing through it, stabbing its way in like this. This dry air is just stabbing its way into this moist air, stabbing its way in, breaking it apart, splitting it in two. And let's zoom in on that area. And there's that dry, massive air causing a rift, causing two different zones of moisture to form. And I would note all those parallel moisture lines there. See the way those lines are perpendicular to the mode of travel of the water? That is called the Hall effect, folks. And if you're not familiar with Hall currents, just look up Birkeland currents and click on the Wikipedia article and you'll see an image there which talks about the Birkeland currents and the Peterson currents that equalize those and the Hall currents that come out of both of them. All to both of them. Anyway, the Hall effect, it's super important for you to understand the way these sorts of things work. So we're looking at the sun here in the intensity gram just to show you that there ain't no sunspots on this yellow dwarf today. Notice the way there are no dark areas. Next we'll look at the colorized magnetogram, which is looking a little blurry. There we go, now it's back to normal. And that's caused by the moon moving in between the SDO and the sun. And there you can see one area of magnetic complexity right here. Otherwise, not a lot going on the local yellow dwarf. Next, we'll break out the 131 angstrom view and close this thing out. It's the final bonus feature of the video. So thanks for tuning in, everybody. Whatever platform you did view the video on, don't freak out. Don't be like, don't say, whoa, what was that? Was that a Borg sphere flying in front of the SDO? Oh my gosh. Don't believe lies and nonsense on the internet. Don't support nonsensical websites. And yeah, thanks for tuning in. Remember, stare at the sun. Don't drink, and if you do, don't drive. And since it'll never be now again, may that solar wind be at your back.